God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. All right, Brad, welcome back.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, man, how you been?
Great.
Good.
Yeah, I was wondering how long it would take to come back and
I know.
this beautiful studio.
I know, right? Glad to have you back.
Yeah.
So, a lot's gone on since the last time you were here. We've both been on some fitness journeys. You just did your first show and all that, and we'll get into that. I just wanted to have you on because I am a true believer in the power of fitness and what it can do, not just for those of us in recovery, but just for people in general, just all the benefits, all of the lifestyle, improvements that happen through physical fitness and mental health improvements too, just everything that it does for you. And I think it's vitally important for those of us in recovery, and it's vitally important for everybody, So I just want to kind of talk to you about, your journey of fitness, how it all started, and how it's manifested in recovery and, where we're at today, you know what I mean? Did you grow up playing sports or how did your fitness journey start?
Yeah, so I think I was actually kind of lucky to grow up in a home with my mom was a active gym goer. I mean, she was the first person who ever took me to the gym. Okay. And I grew up watching her work out in the living room, jump rope, do dumbbell squats, all when I was a kid and she didn't have a babysitter. Or if she did have a babysitter, she'd get one just so she could go to the gym. So I saw how she prioritized that. Mm-hmm. And when you're young, you don't really, your parents don't, well, I guess when you're a teenager, you kind of push what your parents are doing aside, but those seeds are planted.
Right.
And my father, he competed in bodybuilding, powerlifting. Wow. He's been in the gym 5 days a week forever. His whole life. So I kind of grew up with that in the background. So it wasn't unfamiliar to me, which is a huge. Now in hindsight, I look back and I realize what a blessing that was, because now fast forward to me being a trainer for a long time. Yeah. I interact with so many people who never grew up eating chicken and broccoli and tuna and, I'm not going to say that my food growing up was amazing, but I definitely learned how to eat healthy food and bland food.
Right, and eating for a purpose.
Exactly.
Not eating for pleasure, right?
Exactly, yeah. And so always having protein and vegetables is a staple in our diet growing up, which I hated as a kid, right? I saw my other friends drinking soda and eating chips and eating whatever they want. They had Hostess cakes in the house, and, I'd go to the friend's house and I would just gorge myself with all this food I'd never eat at my house. So, it was a point of contention as a kid, but then as I grew up and then I had that seed planted, I think that was it's just a huge benefit because those habits were, even though I meandered out of those habits for a long time, those were instilled, and it was like, it was easy to resort back to. And it was
planted.
And it was familiar to me. So the first time I decided I wanted to go back to the gym, I didn't feel so out of my element, so out of place. I felt like at least I had a somewhat of an idea of what I was doing. So that was super helpful. That stemmed from as I was a kid. Then playing sports, my mom made sure I played all the little league and the soccer and all that stuff. But throughout middle school and high school, I kind of lost my way. Okay. And that, that ended up transpiring into many years of being off the path.
Right.
But I did get that foundation, and that's what I feel is so important for young people today, kids to not just to learn good habits for exercise and eating, but being part of a team, learning to be a team player, learning that gratification isn't always instant, that sometimes you have to do hard work consistently over time to reap the benefits. Yeah. And these are lessons that I don't think you understand as a kid, but then as you get older, you realize, man, the things I learned playing with a team, working with other people, learning to have disputes or to win, to lose, and be okay with it, but then self-reflect, what can I do to be better next time? Yeah. And you learn to take more self-responsibility that way. There's just so many benefits to that. And it's a shame for kids nowadays that aren't playing sports. Because at least back then, if you weren't playing sports, you were at least outside playing around with the kids, declaring war on each other, throwing rocks at each other, playing baseball in the middle of the street. But I don't see that anymore. I'm sure it happens somewhere, but
Yeah.
it's like there's all with the phones and the tablets and the video games.
It is. It's a different time, but it still happens. But yeah, no, I agree. You know, the importance of sports on the youth is crucial. You know, for people like me, it was a way to keep me focused.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like to keep me out of trouble. Not that it even really did, you know, but it definitely kept me in bounds. You know what I mean? And like I wasn't able to. I love sports, right? And so I had to make grades so I could play sports.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if I didn't make grades, I couldn't play sports. And that, you know, as a young man, I'm glad my parents put those boundaries on me. Mm-hmm. And then later on in high school and stuff, they put the boundaries on me too. And, you know, all of the benefits of organized sports, right? Learning how to be a part of a team, you know, being able to learn how to be coachable.
Yes,
right?
Good point.
To work with others, to be a leader, to be a follower,
and to take criticism.
To be able to take criticism, yeah. Perseverance, you know, like learning how to lose, right? Because I suck at losing, dude. Like I hate losing, you know. And so learning how to lose with grace without throwing a freaking tantrum, you know what I mean? Learning how to win with grace too, right?
Absolutely.
And learning how to be a champion and all that, you know. And, you know, it's just so beneficial, you know, and I think it's crucial. And, you know, it builds that mindset of an athlete too. And those, you know, those types of attributes follow you for the rest of your life. And one thing that I wish I would have had more of as a young man was perseverance in team sports, because my parents allowed me to quit. And so if I wasn't having a good time or I wasn't, whatever, for whatever reason, grades, you know, later on, it was when I was in high school, I wanted to party and, you know, I would be on teams, but I would be like 1 foot in, 1 foot out type of thing. I was allowed to do whatever I wanted. You know what I mean? There wasn't a lot of control going on. And, you know, my parents worked a lot and like, they had their own stuff going on, but I was allowed to quit, you know, and that became a problem later in life, you know. So that's one thing that I will instill in my children is like the stick-to-itness. Like if you finish what you start, if you commit to something, that's something that you need to finish, you know. And I think that's an important factor. When did you start seeing the benefits of exercise and like really start to take it serious?
All right, that's a great question. But before we dive into that, I want to. You brought up a good point, about some other benefits of having a sport, being in sports or being involved in team activities as a kid.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think is just so critical is building mind-muscle connection and coordination, and the ability to realize that, like you said, having structure. That structure of, okay, if I'm going to get from point A to point B, like I'm terrible at this and I want to get good at this, it means I have to show up every time we have practice. I have to practice. And then as you practice and you get better and better and better, you start to build more confidence in yourself that, hey, I can do things that I didn't think I could do, or I can achieve things that maybe I thought were unachievable through consistently showing up and practicing, or you know, putting in the effort to just keep showing up even when it's hard, or even when you think I'm not good at this, I can't excel. We're losing every game. We're never going to win, but you keep showing up and then boom, you win. I mean, look at, they made Bad News Bears, right? I mean, these are funny movies, but it's just so relatable because it just encompasses everything about not just team sports, but individual perseverance and commitment, and then the coordination that comes along with it. And then those things, like if you lose your way, like a lot of us do, you have that seed planted and you have those foundations, and you've involved yourself around kids for the most part that have the same mindset, that are doing things that are positive. And if you can grow up in the same area and keep playing those same sports with those same kids, the likelihood of you encompassing good, solid people in your friends group seems to probably be a lot higher than when you're not. Because when kids aren't playing sports or not involved in academics or any other type of extracurricular activities, well, we know what happens.
Yeah.
They have to find a group somewhere. We have to find some sort of identity. And if we don't find it in athletics or we don't find it in academics, then we might find it in other places that may not be as healthy for us spiritually, physically, emotionally, legally, any of that stuff. So
Yeah.
So your question was, when did I start noticing the benefits of exercise?
Yeah.
I think when I look back, I realized I had benefits right away. But when I really started to buy into it and I really started to believe in it, was probably during a stint in jail, and there was nothing else to do, and I had a little bit of background of mixed martial arts and sports and weightlifting. So I started working out every day, and then I started to see my body change, and then I started to think, wow, these endorphins, this ability to set a goal and achieve this goal is really like inspiring to myself, right? It's like it really pumps you up and like, hey, I can achieve this. It boosts your self-esteem, your confidence. And now it's okay, if I can set a goal to do whatever, 100 push-ups today, and then I set a goal, and the next week I'm going to do 200, 300, whatever, and you achieve that goal, then you start to realize like, wow, I can set goals, create a plan to get there, and then get there. And then that subconsciously, or maybe consciously, bleeds into other areas of your life where you realize, hey, I can set a financial goal. If I every day quit doing this one thing that I'm spending money on and I put it over here instead, over this time, I might have some more money. And, then you watch that grow. Or, hey, if I want this job, I might need to get this experience, work this job, get this experience, and then now I can open my own business job, whatever, or I can get a higher wage. And you start to let that bleed out into other areas of your life outside of fitness. And it gives you so much groundwork for everything else with delayed gratification, self-confidence, and that self-confidence builds over time as you set small goals and achieve them. And it really teaches you how to goal set, and not just in the gym, but everywhere. I mean, you set goals in anything in life, then you learn to develop a plan, and then you have the confidence and the trust that if you stay consistent with that plan, that you can get to that goal. Because many times before, when maybe you thought you couldn't, you learned that you could. So I think when we talk about the benefits of exercise and fitness, it goes so deep. Those roots run so deep into so many aspects of life that I think a lot of them don't get covered. We think so much about the health, the longevity, the physique, the way I look and the way I feel, but the way you feel can be, your social skills can be better because now you've been used to putting yourself in environments with other people, like at a gym. You have more confidence in goal setting. I mean, you have these endorphins and this dopamine that you're able to self-produce, and you realize, wow, I can self-produce this. I don't need to get this dopamine or this, these good-feeling chemicals in my brain from other substances. I can do it this way. And then when you get then you get camaraderie from that, and then that camaraderie breeds networking, and then now you're meeting people that are introducing you to other things that are positive. So the fitness space is it can be life-changing if you just immerse yourself in it. Yeah, no, it's been life-changing for me. I think you touched on some really good points there, how it bleeds out into everything. It becomes like a foundation for how you live your life. You know what I mean? The way that, the discipline it takes, the day in, day out discipline, the delayed gratification, you got to put that work in. People see fitness influencers online and stuff. They see these buff dudes, and they're like, oh, it's just steroids, you know what I mean? Which they just don't understand, like the amount of time and discipline and days and hours of grinding, repetitions and muscle contractions it takes to grow. I know. And how much food it takes and how much, discipline just in general, It's the consistency of doing that. Anyone go to the gym and work out real hard and then eat a bunch of good food, but can you do that every day for months when you don't and years and days where you're like, I just don't really feel like tired. It. And my friends are asking me to go out and have a drink, or hey, this girl wants to hang out, or but you keep it as part of your routine.
priorities, right?
Exactly.
And like being able to schedule it, like, and focus on these goals, make a plan, stick to the plan, and that all bleeds out into everything.
Yeah.
You know, it makes you a better person. It makes you a better businessman. Makes you better at relationships. It's about personal development, right?
Absolutely.
It's about not just physical development, but personal development.
Good point. In fact, I sorry to cut you off there,
you're
but I'll forget if I don't say this. But
Yeah.
with the personal development thing, I think that's the thing that I love so much about. We just got off the topic of team sports, but one of the things I love about bodybuilding or just training, weight training, endurance training, it's you versus you. You can get into competitions where you're competing with other people, but at the end of the day, it's you're getting the results because of the work you did,
Right.
not because of what anyone else did.
Yeah.
You are not getting the results because of anything you didn't do, not because you can't blame anyone else but yourself because you chose not to show up or you chose to just eat whatever you wanted or you chose to stay out late and not get enough sleep. These are the things that hold you accountable. And again, that's another thing that maybe we missed, that was just the self-accountability that you realize
Yeah.
like, hey, I get what I put into this, whatever it is. And if you're not into lifting weights, you're not into running, like that's fine. I can understand not wanting to be consistent with things that aren't enjoyable to you.
Yeah.
But you need to find something that's enjoyable to you and be
yeah.
consistent with something that checks these boxes that's enjoyable. And it could be that you played pickleball, right? It could be that you like to go rock climbing or hiking.
Yeah.
But if you can find something and be consistent with it and not waver on that consistency, you're going to excel.
Yeah. And that's why sports are so great, is because it doesn't necessarily feel like a dedicated exercise.
Totally.
You know, like some of us like to go grind it out in the gym and just, do reps and bodybuild, right? But a lot of people just, want to play basketball,
Totally.
or baseball. And, but those get kind of mixed together too, because the greats at most of these sports also have dedicated exercise schedules and routines,
Well, I think that's the point, though, is that you find something you like, and then you'll find enjoyment in the process of getting better at those things. So if you don't really like going and grinding the weights because of maybe the experiences you've had in the past, that's fine. But let's just say let's use your example, baseball. You like to play softball in a co-ed league with your friends, but it's fun and you do it every year. When you're starting to want to get a little bit better, well, then going to the gym and doing some sled pushes and doing some squats or some explosive movements there starts to become more fun because you start to feel there's a purpose for it that's going to translate into your other passions.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's important is finding a path. It's just like we said, setting goals. And then when you set that goal, I want to get better at indoor soccer. Okay, great. What are some of the things I can do to get better at that? Well, now all of a sudden, those things that didn't sound fun before, you start to find enjoyment in seeing yourself progress with.
Yeah.
Because once you have a plan and you see yourself progress, it's hard not to enjoy that. And when you set a small goal and you achieve it, it's hard not to enjoy that. And I think a mistake that I made for sure, and probably a lot of other people, is we have too high of expectations and we set too out of range goals and then don't achieve them. And then that's depressing and it's defeating. But if we can say, hey, if it's something small, like, if you're really overweight, and I talk to people all the time that are really overweight and they want to get in shape, and they're asking me, how much should I do? How much of this? It's like, dude, just go walk down the block. Do that. Do that every day for a week. And after you do that, you're going to feel really good about yourself because you said you were going to do it and you did it. And then the next week, you might do two walks.
Yeah.
And then you might say, hey, look, I can do this. I'm going to do 10 push-ups in between each walk. And then it just grows over time. And those small goals that you set and those small achievements are huge wins psychologically. And those propel you into the next goal and having the confidence to achieve it. So
yeah, definitely. And, to go along with like that purpose-driven, exercise, like if you really enjoy football, like for me, like I want it to be the best. You know what I mean? I want to be able to go out there and freaking smash people, so in order to be that guy, I need to put the hours in the gym and like grow my legs and grow my shoulders. And I know that I'm working towards this goal, you know what I mean? And the more time I put in the gym and the more, hours I sweat and grind and push weight, it translates, and when I go out there and I play, football and we crush people, then boom, I'm rewarded for that, and it just builds on itself.
And then makes you
right?
more excited to go back and hit more squats or whatever it is training program you had to get there. Now it's like, wow, that worked. How can I turn it up even more? How can I bring even better game? And I think it's also like so relatable to, we're on a recovery podcast, and if one thing I struggle with doing is, and I go in and out of cycles of this, like I'm sure people do with their fitness all the time, but reading the Bible. Right? All I have to do, I don't have to sit down and read all of Mark and Luke in one sitting. I just got to crack open the page and read a verse.
Yeah.
And if I can do that every day, then that verse turns into 2 verses. And then it becomes a habit that I open it up every day. And then as I open it up every day, I open my mind to reading more things, seeing more things, getting more into it. Then good things happen in my life. I start feeling better. I start treating people better. And then I don't want to let go of that thing that's propelling me in that direction. And so then you latch on, and that's when that habit becomes a passion.
Yep, no doubt. And it also goes the other way too. And this is a big point in recovery, is like sometimes we just need to go through the motions. You know what I mean? Like if you're feeling real tired, or you just don't have the motivation, you just need to go and put the reps in. Just show up at the gym and put the reps in, eat the food, whatever it is that you don't want to do, you need to do. Read the Bible every morning, right? Go to the recovery meeting, call your sponsor, whatever it is, like go through the motions, because, the more you put it off, the easier it is to put off.
Totally.
You know what I mean? And pretty soon you're not showing up to meetings anymore. You're not holding that recovery responsibility. You're missing 3 days of the week.
Exactly.
And all of a sudden you're backtracking.
Yeah. I mean, and I see that play out all the time. You see people coming in every day, then you don't see them for a week, and then they come back, and it's like, oh, I had this or that. And then it's like, okay, well, you're back now. But then after 3 days, you don't see them again for 2 weeks. And then those spaces in between get longer and longer and longer.
Lose confidence,
and then
before their body's changing.
Exactly. And then you're old. You fill that time and that commitment with other things, and now you have in your mind a valid excuse not to do this, right? So it's not just the gym; it's everything. It is recovery too. It's the same thing.
Yep.
There's days that you don't want to show up. Just show up, because know what? You know what? There's a lot of people who are showing up that feel the same way. They don't really feel like being there today, but they show up, and the next day they're there. They're ecstatic to be there, right? So sometimes you have to go through those days of, this isn't my favorite thing. But when you leave, you always leave glad you did it. When I leave a meeting, I'm always glad I went to the meeting. When I go to church and I didn't feel like getting in the car, I'm always glad I did afterwards. I've never, ever, ever heard someone leave the gym saying, man, I really wish I didn't work out today. Never heard it.
I know.
But I've heard the opposite over and over and over again, right? Yeah. So it's sometimes going back to, I think what sparked this direction was making small achievable goals.
Yeah.
And take off bite-sized chunks.
Well, let me touch one more base on that too.
Yeah,
is
totally.
A good thing about, and this goes for recovery and the gym too, is having an accountability partner, right?
Yes.
Having a trainer.
Yes.
Right. Having a sponsor.
Absolutely.
Having a responsibility in the meetings, whether you're a secretary or you have some kind of position, right, service position. That way you have some responsibility, you have some accountability, especially on the days where you don't want to go.
Totally.
You're paying a freaking trainer. Like, you need to show up and get your time in. You have an accountability workout partner that's going to call you and bring your butt to the gym, right? Yeah. And same thing with recovery. We lean on each other in these rooms, and we are held accountable to our service positions.
It's so funny because it's so hard. I mean, it seems like for men, it's been generally hard for us to ask for help.
Yeah.
And especially with addiction, it's like we have a hard time asking for help. But once we finally do, and we commit ourselves to checking in with a sponsor, and that's our trainer, right? That's our recovery trainer. Yeah. Then we realize, wow, this is going so much smoother. This is going better. I'm actually showing up and doing these things that I know I should do, but I don't ever do. So same thing with myself. I've been a trainer since 2000. I've been certified since 2007 and been personal training, throughout all those years. And so you would assume I know what to do. I like to do it. But even with this bodybuilding show I had a coach because there's something about being accountable to someone every week, especially with like the diet, with the when you have to send your pictures in every week and you have to be honest about how well did I stick to the plan. Those days, those moments where you're feeling like, I can eat this, or you self-justify, like, I don't really have to go, or I can eat this and then just do some extra cardio to burn it off. And you start playing these little justification, rationalization games. It just takes you, it works for a day or two, but then it takes you down the wrong path. Same thing with getting high or getting loaded. You can rationalize, I can just have a beer. And then for a couple days, maybe that's true. But then a week later, it becomes, I can manage this. And then you dabble in something else, and then it just spirals out of control in a million different directions. So having the accountability of checking in is huge. When I'm starving in those last like 8 weeks and I'm just finding an excuse to want to eat something, but I know that I have to stick to the plan, it's having that person to check in with is a lifesaver. It's a life-saving thing, and having a sponsor. So having accountability, we just need to humble ourselves and realize that it's okay to lean on someone else.
100%. So how did you get into personal training? What was that journey like?
So actually that goes back to when I started exercising really regularly and really getting interested in like being consistent with it in that 9 months I was doing in jail back when I was, I think, 19. And when I got out of jail and I was in love with these endorphins and this workout, which I had done before, but never really like full, consistent, every day, really loving it like I was. I thought, man, I love exercise and I love music. I want to do something that's productive, that I can make money at, that I love. So I actually chose music at first, and I went to college. I went to Sierra College took some music classes to get a music degree. Very quickly, I realized, this isn't what I want to do. I love music, but this is making me not like it. So I went the fitness route, and I saw online that the top growing jobs in the next 10 years one of them was personal training. And I thought, wow, well, I love working out.
That was true, too.
And working out and fitness has really helped change my perspective on things. Now, I lost my way because I didn't have some of those other things in place, like a sponsor and a program and an accountability for that. But it did wonders for my self-esteem, my self-confidence, and the will to be clean and sober, and the ability to see that there's actually a light at the end of that tunnel that's better than this way. And I wanted to share that with other people. So that's kind of how I got involved with it in the beginning. My mom was a PE teacher, so I saw her working with fitness as a job. I like the idea of setting my own schedule. And I like the idea because I love being in the gym. I thought, man, if I can get paid to be in the gym all day, this would be amazing. And it turned out to be everything I dreamed.
Nice.
I mean, I love my job.
What do you love about it?
I love that I get to be in an environment around positive people who want to be there. I'm not dealing with people who are there that, we all have days when we maybe not feel like it, but generally everyone's there because they're choosing to be there.
Yeah.
People have their endorphins going. They're feeling good. Their dopamine's flowing because they're working out. So the environment is pretty uplifting and positive in any gym you're in.
You ever train nasty people, though?
Yeah, I have. But, I guess in the
like
beginning.
Obese people. I'm just going to be real with you. I'm a little bit like prejudiced towards fat people. So they just kind of gross me out a little bit, So that's one thing I feel like I would have a hard time is like working with fat people. How many fat people do you work with, though? Probably not that many.
Yeah, a lot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
It depends on how you define fat nowadays.
Yeah,
nowadays, pretty much everyone's overweight. So, if you're talking about like a morbidly obese person who's kind of, you would assume as slobby.
Yeah.
It can be difficult because you want to help people, but they have to want to be helped.
Right.
And I think that's why I have so much respect for drug counselors.
Yeah.
Because it's got to be way hard for them to know the percentage of people who actually succeed is so low, and you're giving all yourself to someone who's really not ready to receive it. But in the beginning, when you're young and you're new to the game, you'll kind of take whatever you can.
Sure.
And at the end of the day, even if they're not really getting to their goals, it's frustrating, but at least you're getting them in the gym and moving, and you're getting them. The way I always looked at it is like, at the end of the day, what I'm doing for them is what my mom did for me. She got me into the gym. She planted the seed.
Yeah.
I feel more comfortable and confident. So maybe when I'm ready, I'll come back and I'll at least won't be out of my element. So if I can get these people to at least plant the seed, give them some guidance so that they don't feel so uncomfortable about being in there, that's a win. Because I realize how many people walk through those doors to join the gym that is a scary move for them.
Sure.
Because
they don't know any of the machines, they don't all new environment.
They don't want to look dumb. They don't want to look stupid. They don't want to hurt themselves. They don't want everyone looking at them because they're judging them because they're assuming that everyone in the gym is just super fit and ripped and everyone knows what they're doing, which is far from the truth.
Right.
But that's their perspective. And it's kind of like a high school dance. No one wants to dance because everyone's thinking they're going to be judged, but the reality is no one's watching you, no one cares, you know?
Right. Everybody's concerned with themselves.
Yeah, and that's the same thing with the gym. And
looking at themselves in the mirror.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. In fact, if anything, when people are really, really big and they're in the gym, they're the heroes.
Right.
Because they're the ones who are really stepping outside of their comfort zone more than anyone else. So I actually applaud that, especially those who come in and really make an effort. Some people who come in and, you know, they come in because their doctor sent them in. They're not really ready. It's kind of like going to rehab because the court sent you there. You're not ready. But still, a lot of those people turn over and end up changing their lives. I was one of them. I have to give them an opportunity and a chance.
Yeah,
you know?
and you have the opportunity to really help someone change their life. You know, they come in there and they have all these negative habits that have gotten them to that point, right? And you show them a different way to live. You show them how to have the discipline, how to stick to a plan, how to eat properly, how to exercise without hurting themselves. And it can change their whole life. It can change their habits and their foundations, and pretty soon they're doing all the positive things that we've talked about that come with exercise.
Yeah, and what you asked, what your initial question about the really overweight people who are just total slobs, I think that there's a lot. Well, I know that there's a lot of trainers who get burned out with people who don't really try. And one of the things that I think that had given me longevity in this, and that one of the things I love about it, is it's always a question about me versus me. What did I do to fail this person? How could I have motivated them more? How could I have helped shape their perspective? How could I have made this path easier and less stressful for them? And over the years, those are things I get better at. And that's why I have more and more and more and more clients over the years getting more and more and more results as a percentage of the people I work with, because I start to learn that just because it says this on paper doesn't always mean it's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to meet people where they're at and make those small changes. Hey, it could be simple, like I want you to quit drinking soda, switch to diet soda. And that's the only thing we're going to do for this first month. That's it. And then when they do that and they achieve that and they lose a little bit of weight, they realize, oh, wow, I'm seeing a progress from these little change I made. And then we can make another change, right? Yeah. And it's all about who the individual is. But I try to take that on myself. And every time someone leaves and doesn't get what they wanted out of it, right or wrong, I kind of internalize it and think, okay, what could I have done? Because I'm their coach. They're my player. And if they're not, they've got to be coachable. But at the same time, they're admitting they want to be coached because they're paying for my services. So. Right. But I'm not above, and I have done this before, I'm not above firing a client. I have absolutely let someone know, hey, I don't think it's fair for me to take your money anymore. There was an individual that I thought needed to see someone at a higher level of care than I could give them. I think they had a huge emotional eating and drinking problems, and that was tied to some deep trauma that they needed to get sorted out that I wasn't equipped to deal with. Right. And until they dealt with that, it was going to be really difficult for us. So I've had to part ways with people before, and they get a little upset in the moment because no one likes to be told no. Yeah. But later, I think they, for the most part, most of the time we realize later, like, hey, that was probably a good thing. Yeah. They showed me tough love, in a polite way. But yeah, I mean, looking at overweight people or people who are total slobs, it's hard not to have an initial judgment because of the way I live my life. Yeah. And then I always try to, before I used to judge that pretty hard, and I used to probably say some pretty nasty things in my head. But I try to look at it now as what about when I was strung out 120 pounds, just tweaked out in the streets,
No doubt.
and people were thinking, who cares if this guy dies? He's a total piece of crap, right? And maybe I was, and actually maybe I probably should have been told that. I don't know. You know, sometimes I think being told hard things is good.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that people were there willing to help me and didn't think I was a lost cause, because if they felt like I was a lost cause, I may not have had that support to change my life when I was ready.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen the first time. I went through treatment many, many times before it actually worked.
Right.
And so the seed was planted and I knew it was possible, but I wasn't ready. But when I was ready, someone was ready to be there for me. And I tried to look at it that way when it comes to working with other people.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's, you know, I think it's important and like valuable what you're saying to, you know, take ownership of them. But at the end of the day, it's on them whether or not they're going to, you know, succeed in their fitness journey.
It is, but I can set them up the best way possible.
Sure, and
right?
I feel the same way, you know, like working with sponsees and people in recovery is like, you know, and it's the same kind of thing, you know, it correlates where like you get frustrated when people don't put out the effort, you know, and like I've only had a couple people succeed, you know, and I've had a bunch of friggin' sponsees, you know, and it's like you look at yourself like, what am I doing wrong? You know, how can I better help these people and give them the best opportunity to change, you know? But at the end of the day, you can't change anybody. You know what
I know.
So,
You can just try to be inspiration.
sure.
But I'm actually interested about your endurance
Yeah.
training, because I know I've been doing the bodybuilding thing, and we
Yeah.
can talk about that. But you said you're training for 100 miles?
Yeah, I am now.
Holy
yeah.
cow.
So along with my recovery journey, you know, it started, you know, when I was locked up also. You know, I was in El Dorado County, and they had this little yard. It was about the size of about half a basketball court, and I would just run in circles on this court, and I would get out for an hour a day, not even a day, a couple days a week.
Yeah.
And I would get out there and I would just run in circles. And it finally came to me, you know, I enjoyed the release of running and like, you know, the mental clarity that came from it. And I was like, you know what, when I get out of here, I'm going to run a marathon. And I made that decision. And then, you know, when I got out, I started to put that into action and like, all the things we talked about, right? Paying attention to, you know, how we're training, like having a purpose-driven focus and direction of my training, you know, starting to research how to train for a marathon, like how to eat, how to, you know, properly fuel my body for these things.
Yes.
And like, you know, this is the thing with drug addicts, you know, I have an obsessive behavior personality.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
So like when I become, you know, in on something, like I'm all in. You know what I mean? And so when I become engaged with something that I'm really focused on, like I become obsessive with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it kind of bleeds with everything. And that's why I became a drug addict too, is because I'm a obsessive compulsive disorder.
Totally.
You know what I mean? And so for me, it's easy to just become consumed with these things. And I love it. You know, I love to become consumed with things that I like to do, you know? And so I became consumed with this endurance thing and just built on it. And then, you know, I ran that marathon and I felt good. You know, I felt good that I had accomplished it. And I felt good that, you know, I had set that goal and worked towards it and accomplished that goal, you know, but I felt like I had more. You know, I felt like, oh, I could probably go further.
Nice.
You know what I mean? And then I ran a 50K, which is about, you know, 31 miles. And you know, I was pretty satisfied with that distance at that point. But then you know, through these journeys, it's a journey of self-discovery.
Totally.
You know what I mean? It's like, for me, I've always, you know, thought I'm a pretty tough guy, you know, and like can endure, you know, difficult situations and I'm mentally tough. You know, I joined the Navy SEAL program when I was 18 and like, but I didn't get to accomplish that because of my
Ego?
other issues.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was violent in the Navy and got kicked out, so I never got to really put myself to that test. You know what I mean? So for me, it was like, well, how tough are you? Like, how much can you endure? You know what I mean? Are you actually able to get into that dark space, you know, in that pain cave and like persevere and keep going?
That David Goggins,
right,
yeah.
where other people would
Yeah.
quit. Are you capable of pushing through? You know, and for me to tie it into this recovery theme, I had this ambition of like, first I wanted to swim across Tahoe, and I was like, because being from Tahoe and like living up there for a long time, they have a local newspaper, and anybody that swims across that lake gets in the paper. And so for me, I had this idea that I wanted to get in that paper and use it as a platform to speak about opioid addiction and overdose.
Oh, cool.
One of my best friends, Nick Dakin, died, you know, when we were 24. He overdosed, and it totally changed my life, you know. And so I wanted to bring awareness to that through that platform. And so that kind of morphed into not just swimming, but I wanted to do the Tahoe Rim Trail, which is about a 100-mile hike all the way around through the mountains of Lake Tahoe. And it's 180 miles. And so I wanted to do that, and then I wanted to run around the lake, which is 72 miles.
Wait, did you hike that 180 miles?
I did, yeah.
How long did that take you?
10 days.
No way.
Yeah.
Did you do it by yourself?
My cousin came with me.
Really?
Yeah, so we did a backpacking trip, and we started at Spooner Summit and headed clockwise. So we came back through and went up to the West Shore, which is Desolation, walked all the way through there. We took a break in the North Shore, Tahoe City over there, and continued on. And yeah, 10 days straight hiking. We rested one day over there on the North Shore, but you know, yeah, it was a journey, bro.
Wow.
It was fun. It was
amazing.
more just like a fun thing than it was like a super hard endurance thing. But I mean, there was a lot of endurance. You know, we were hiking up to 20 to 25 miles a day.
Wow.
You know, there were some days where we really pushed, and you know, you got to pay attention to, you know, I split my foot open about 50 miles into it. We were fishing, and I was bathing and fishing at the same time, and you know, I got a fish on, and I'm like scrambling on these rocks, right? And by the time I get this fish in, my foot is just bleeding out, and I had a huge gash on the bottom of my foot. So
Wow.
then I have this thing wrapped up, and I have to pay attention to that, you know, and I didn't have the proper footwear. By the time we got to the North Shore, my feet were destroyed.
Wow.
You know, I didn't have the right, I had to get insoles in the bottom of my, you know, shoes, and like,
man.
I'm wrapping my foot this whole time. And it
No wonder you took a break.
yeah, it became like a serious endurance, you know, evolution in itself, just to like persevere through all that.
Wow.
You know, so that felt good. And then I continued on. I wanted to run that 72 miles. I had planned on doing it that summer. So I did that rim trail, and I was planning on doing that run in the fall. And by the time I got pretty close to that date, my legs were still beat up from that hike. And
How long did it take you to recover from that?
I mean, my bones took probably a couple months. You know what
Wow.
I mean? Like my legs were sore for a little while, but like continuing on my marathon training, like it had taken a toll. It had taken way more of a toll than I thought it would.
Wow.
And it was hard for me to continue to put those miles in to be able to successfully run that marathon.
Wait, so you were training for the marathon?
Yeah, I was gonna run them back. I was gonna do them back. I was gonna do the whole thing back to back, basically.
Oh my
You know, I
God.
had these. I wanted to do it all like I wanted to do the land parts in the same year, and then I was gonna swim the next year. And I ended up doing that hike, and then I dedicated the whole next year to doing that run.
Wow.
And so yeah, in the 72-mile journey, you know, I took a whole year basically to work up to that point. And, you know, like we talked about, the discipline and dedication of, you know, the months of training that
Yeah.
it took me to get to that point, and like learning how to fuel during runs, right?
That's huge.
When you get into these long distances, you have to be fueling the whole time.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be, you know, for me, I'm like eating something every hour, whether it's a solid or just, you know, liquid carbs and electrolytes, you know, paying attention to my water intake, outtake, everything, right? And, you know, that run took me 18 hours to finish.
Jeez.
You know what I mean? And I had done a training run, a 50-miler, I think a month and a half before. and it was too close together. Again, I had overtrained, right?
Yeah.
Hadn't given myself enough time to recuperate from that. And so, we started at 9 p.m. and we headed counterclockwise around the lake. We started in South Lake Tahoe at the, then it was the Hard Rock Casino. I think it's the Gold Nugget now. And we left 9 p.m. and I had my wife meet me every 3 hours to refuel. I wore a backpack, we had a headlamp, the whole thing. And about an hour in, I started to get shin splints in my legs. And it was from the overtraining. My legs were just pretty beat up at this point. And it was painful, but it wasn't going to stop me. You know what I mean? I can endure a lot of pain. It wasn't a huge deal. I met her at the 3 hour mark. I was feeling pretty good. I had the pain, but it wasn't a big deal. I put her in a hotel the day before on the North Shore, which is about the halfway point, Kings Beach over there.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so by the time I got to her, it was about 3 a.m., about 6 hours into it. And I was feeling really good. Like I'd been cruising. I physically felt well. I felt like the way I had been fueling and hydrating was good. Like I hadn't experienced any stomach issues, moderate pain in my legs, but it wasn't a huge deal. Like I felt I was ahead of the time schedule. I was running faster than I thought I had been or wanted to at that point. Like I just felt good, you know?
Yeah.
And so at that point, I had planned a solid meal, like a pretty big meal.
Ooh,
and I ate like a quesadilla and some fruit and stuff like that, and felt great when I left there, And then probably I don't know, an hour.
I don't know if that cheese was maybe good on
it. I still to this day don't know exactly what it was.
Yeah.
But whatever it was did not work. And my stomach just detonated about an hour later, and I had diarrhea for the next 6 or 7 hours.
Oh my God.
And so, it's still nighttime at this point, and I'm running and have to duck off in the bushes and shitting on the side of people's houses. Thankfully I prepared and brought toilet paper, things like that.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Oh yeah.
That was a question I didn't want to ask. Is
No.
did you just pull them up?
This wasn't my first. I've lost socks before. Trust me, I've lost socks before. I've taken my underwear off before.
Okay, yeah.
I've already experienced this in training.
Yeah,
So I
okay.
kind of knew what to expect there and planned for that bad occasion, which happened. And but to go along with the diarrhea is dehydration.
Absolutely.
And so I was struggling to keep my fluids level, and by the morning time I was on around Tahoe City, and I was whooped, bro. I was whooped. And this was probably 9 hours or so into it, and I was in pretty rough shape.
So this is the halfway point then.
Yeah, I mean, I was probably a little bit past halfway miles wise, but I think I still had I don't know, 40 or something miles to go. So yeah, it probably was about halfway, and I was in pretty bad shape, but I wasn't gonna quit.
Yeah.
And people were quitting then. People were at that point and were starting to peel off.
That's hard to watch
Yeah.
because it gives you a little bit
Yeah.
of doubt and a little bit of reason to join them.
Right. Yeah. So those thoughts start to creep in. You know what I mean? Where it's we can do this next year. You have diarrhea. It's a valid excuse to quit.
Oh yeah, I know.
You start to rationalize these reasons of why you can quit. And that's just that you got to put that stuff to the side.
Yeah, because I mean, this is probably true for you. It's totally rational to quit, and I mean, it really is. It's not just seeming rational. It is, but those of us who have a goal,
Yeah.
you're going to be so mad at yourself 3 days
I know.
later,
Yeah,
4
you
days
can't-
later,
you'll never forgive yourself.
yeah, and you're just like, man, by now I would have been done,
Yeah.
and I quit,
Yeah, and so the trick for these long distance events, and this is for anything in life, honestly, is when you're looking at a mountain, right, that you have to climb, you have to break it down into increments, or it looks overwhelming.
Oh, totally, absolutely.
So you have to chunk this thing down.
Just like any goal.
Just like any goal. And so for me, I was breaking it down into these 3 hour chunks where I would meet my wife and refuel. I'm just going to make it to the next checkpoint, right? And at that morning checkpoint, I was in rough shape, but I was like, I'm going to keep pushing. I'll see you in 3 hours, Well, about an hour after that, I don't know if it was from running all night in the cold weather or what exactly happened, but my lungs just like seized up on me. Like felt like almost like an asthma attack, but like pneumonia, where I was coughing up. You know, I had moisture in my lungs.
Oh no.
You know, and I think it was from running in the cold. Plus, we're at altitude too, right?
Yeah.
But I was acclimated because I had been living there. But something about that cold at night, I think, got to me, and so I was wheezing bad. So now I'm like struggling to breathe. You know, my legs are beat up. I've had diarrhea all night, like just dragging ass, bro. And there's a section on that West Shore where it's like a couple miles stretch up to DL Bliss State Park where it's like it's rough, bro. It's a huge climb. And, you know, by the time I got to the top of that thing, I was just brutal. I was just struggling. And it's morning by now, you know, it's morning time. And I got to the top of that thing, and it was kind of like a make or break moment. We only had 18 hours to accomplish this, to be a finisher, right? Where you get a medal and like the whole thing. And, you know, I was there and I had 4 hours to go. So I've been running for 14 hours.
Jeez.
And I had 16 miles. So, you know, typically, you know, 4 miles an hour it's not fast. You know, it's a 15-minute mile. Like it's a slow jog. Like some people can walk it.
Yeah.
You know, but I was in rough shape. You know, and it was like at that point I had to make the decision. Like quitting wasn't an option. You know, I was gonna finish no matter what, but I wanted to finish within the time limit. Like that was my goal, was to be a finisher and to get the medal, do the whole thing, you know? So it was like, do I listen to that guy that's telling me, oh, it's okay, like you're having issues, you know, it was a rough night, you know, your lungs are seizing up, like you can just finish, you know, like you'll be fine if you just finish as long as you don't quit? Or do you push, you know, do you try to make this thing happen? Do you give it your maximum effort? And then if you fail, it is what it is, right? But at least you try.
Exactly.
You know,
yeah.
and so that's what I did. I was like, I'm just going to push it and I'm going to see what happens here. And so I would run and walk and run and walk, and like a couple minutes running and then 30 seconds walk. And just the next 4 hours were just a brutal grind to the finish. And you know, but I finished with 15 minutes to spare.
Oh, cool.
On that 18-hour mark.
Nice.
And I felt great, you know, and looking back, as bad as it sucked, it was exactly what I wanted. You know, I wanted to get into that dark place, in that pain cave, and persevere. You know, I wanted to find myself in that place.
With every reason, excuse to give up, but you still didn't. Yeah, that's awesome.
And so that made me feel good, and it built that confidence. And then going into the swim, it was just a whole different lane. You know, I felt like I've proven myself that I'm tough enough to do this thing, right? I can pretty much persevere through any difficult environment. But now running and swimming are totally different things, right? It's like you can be a Usain Bolt, but you put him in the pool and he might flop around like a fish, you know, like not knowing what to do. Yeah. And I had some swimming background, you know, like I said, I went the Navy SEAL program, and like we did a lot of swimming in there. And so I was a confident swimmer, so I wasn't just going in blind here.
So you're comfortable in the water.
I'm comfortable in the water, but I'd never had like swimming lessons really. And so, you know, in the Navy we learned this combat side stroke, which is it's a side stroke that has a scissor kick in it, and like you can do it for a long time. Very comfortable, like it doesn't smoke you to do, you know. And so that was kind of always my backup stroke. But you need to learn how to freestyle, and the people that do this swim, they freestyle pretty much the whole way. And you have to, because of the speed, because you're fighting the cold. That lake is cold, you know, and
the lake's cold in the hot summer in the daytime.
Yes, it's cold. Like the warmest it gets is around 70 degrees. And that's the peak hottest time of the year, you know, late August, you know, and that's when I was trying to do it. But, you know, so to swim across that lake it's 22 miles. north to south, right?
Jeez.
And that was my goal. And so I got into this open water swimming association, and Lake Tahoe has its own organization there. And I got in touch with them, and they have their own guidelines and rules. Like you can't use a wetsuit, no flotation devices. You can never touch the boat. The boat can't guide you, so it can't be in front of you. It can't be alongside you. You have to be the one swimming, and it's a support vessel, right?
Oh, wow.
And so you pay somebody to be an observer on these vessels, but you have to provide the vessel. So I talked to this guy, and he's like trying to talk me out of it. He's like, listen, this isn't necessarily like something that people just do. Like, people that swim across this lake are, collegiate swimmers, like people that have been doing this their whole life, And I'm like, I feel like I could probably do it, just like so cocky, confident. He's like, well, check it out. You've already paid to have somebody observe you, but I want you to swim east or west to east first. And if you can do that in 8 hours, then we'll give you the observer to do the long ways.
How far is the east to west?
13 miles.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so still a significant chunk, And so I trained, and, my training was like 3 or 4 days a week. There's just so many laps in the pool. I mean, just an ungodly amount.
Is that where
laps.
You trained in a regular, like, Olympic pool?
Yeah, most of my miles were just in a pool.
Oh, that's
just
boring.
So boring.
Which made it less boring when you're out there.
I would try to do like an open water swim, here and there. And I'll tell you, this was almost a fatal mistake, by the way. I was like, I had the idea, I'm just going to swim an hour out and an hour back in Folsom Lake. Like, this was just as a training swim, right?
Yeah.
And this was like my first open water swim. I got in Folsom Lake and I swam out there. I was probably 45 minutes out, and I was having a hell of a time with my goggles. They were just fogging up. I couldn't freaking see anything, dude. It was pissing me off. And then all of a sudden, I just like came to this realization: I'm out here in the middle of this lake by myself. And then all of a sudden, like, the fear and anxiety came over me, bro. And I like started to have like a
panic attack.
Yeah. I couldn't see, and it's like wavy, and I'm just like out there, and nobody knows I'm out there. Like, I had told my wife I'm going out there, but nobody was there.
Wow.
Like, there was boats going by and stuff, but like they didn't see me. Nobody knew what I was doing. You know what I mean? And like that realization came over me, and I had an infant son at home, and like all these thoughts started coming, you know what I mean? And I just like, then the thought came like, nobody's gonna save you. I was like, you just need to swim your ass back in there.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's coming to save you, bro.
How do you, I got a question, because we're talking about fueling. How do you fuel when you're out in the water?
On that particular swim, I didn't bring anything.
You just fueled before a lot?
Yeah, before. Yeah. And then, you can drink the lake water if you really get thirsty. But as far as the long swim, we would stop and fuel. But yeah, so that was kind of like an uh-oh moment, and then I was like, all right, well, I just got to swim. I just had to gather myself and swim back in. And from there, it was like a lot of cold water training. I bought an ice bath and was doing cold water exposure that way, and did some open water swims in Tahoe along the shoreline.
Oh, yeah.
Learned my lesson there. And so I started doing that, where I could, stop and get out if I need to.
Or yell and have someone hear you.
Exactly. So I learned my lesson there, and then starting to swim at night, doing some night swims, things like that. And so we ended up, I set up a swim to go west to east. And so we started over there about Homewood, and we started at night. It was about 9 p.m. I have a boat, and my cousin and a couple buddies were on the boat. And, they followed me, which was super hard to do. I had no idea, like, how hard it would be to
swim in a straight line out there.
Swim in a straight line. you know, because like in a pool you have boundaries and you have lanes.
Yeah,
and
you have visuals. Yeah.
it's easy to, there's a big black stripe in the bottom of the pool you're following, but to swim freestyle in an open space and to stay on track is very hard, especially at night.
Especially with waves.
Yeah.
Which hopefully at night there's probably not as much
Not
of
as
that.
much, thankfully. But I mean, it's still open water. Like
Yeah.
it's not a pool. You know what I mean? And so like, you know, first hour in, I'm feeling pretty good. But like they're shining the light. Like, hey, go right. Like I'm having a hard time staying on track. So I'm zigzagging.
I can imagine.
I'm trying to like keep an eye on them behind me as like a guide. You know, but it's difficult, and you can't see where you're going. It's freaking nighttime. All you can see is lights on the other side of the lake 13 miles away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I was swimming freestyle for probably the first 2 hours, and then my shoulder was just, I don't know what happened.
Would you have like a compass watch to help guide you like in the right direction?
I had a watch, but it wasn't a compass watch.
Oh, I thought-
I mean, you're stroking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you're stopping, you can stop and talk to the boat. You know, but they wouldn't. I never touched the boat. You know, they would throw me a water bottle that had electrolytes, carbs in it. They'd throw me food. You know, whatever I needed. We would stop and we would do a mental health check. Like they would ask me questions, make sure I'm not going into hypothermia, because that's a real threat, you know. And
no wetsuit.
no wetsuit, and you don't really realize when you're going into hypothermia.
Really?
Like, you'll feel cold, you might start shivering, but it becomes a gray area to where you don't realize how cold you are anymore.
Huh.
And to where you'll start sounding like you're drunk, you're slurring your words, you're having a hard time manipulating your fingers. Like there's signs, you know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
But as the swimmer, it's hard to tell when you've crossed that boundary. And people die. People died doing this. Not necessarily in Tahoe, but in the ocean and things like that. Like people die from hypothermia doing these open water swims. And so it was something that we took serious, and we would, you know, do a mental health check every once in a while too. And I started swimming, and man, my shoulder was just killing me doing this freestyle. I think it was overtraining again. I'm
going to pause you real quick.
Yeah.
I think that's the downfall of us obsessive people.
Yeah.
Is like we could get so much further with some of our goals if we weren't in fifth gear all the time.
Right.
Sometimes taking a deload or a taper week, and it's like taper, deload. What's
I
that?
know.
You know, oh, I'm going to go easy this week. But as soon as you jump in the water, or you jump on the bike, or you jump on the path, or in the weight room, it's
Yeah.
like all bets are off. It's now I'm grinding all the way out until
Yep.
my shoulders are bone on bone.
Bone on bone. I know. And this is another benefit of having a trainer, right?
Yeah.
And like somebody that's done it, or somebody that's done something like it, where they know they've already experienced these things, right? Where I'm just like a YouTube guy. Like I'll go on YouTube and watch people that have done similar stuff, and I just think I can do it.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? And I can. You know what I mean? But it comes down to things like this, where I'm overtraining and not fueling properly, eating the wrong thing in the middle of the night. Those are the hard mistakes that I could have avoided if I had a trainer.
Yeah.
But I didn't.
I can relate to the same thing. Even with the bodybuilding show, there's times I'm like so hungry, or can't sleep, or I'm feeling some type of way, and I can reach out to him like, hey, this is how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And don't worry, you're supposed to feel like that right now. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know, so those are super valuable.
Yeah, no doubt. So yeah, my shoulder was smoked, and so I changed to the side stroke, and then I'm side stroking for another, and you can switch sides on the side stroke, but
With your bum
slower.
shoulder, it's probably harder to switch sides.
Well,
No?
it felt okay because I'm not going over the top. It was that over the top motion of the
Got it.
freestyle that was hurting me. The side, you're more pulling. It's a different stroke,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you're not working the same. You're not working that joint the same way, But then I started getting like these internal cramps in my chest. It felt like my heart, but I knew it wasn't my heart. It was more just like something internal. But I was having sharp pain in my chest. And so I could only do side stroke on one side because the other side hurt and my shoulder was smoked from. And so then I did this side stroke at night, all night long for like 8 hours straight. One side. Just unbelievably savage, bro. And, it was just a grind. And like by the time the sun came up in the morning, like I thought I was way farther than I was. And you know, you're looking across, and these mountains, they look close.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I pop my head up every 30 minutes, every hour, and I feel like I haven't even moved.
Yeah.
You know, and and there's no music. Like your
Raw dog in it, yeah.
are dead. You know, because I had goggles that were tinted too to keep the sun rays out. And so my vision's almost completely black, especially in the water at night. Like it's all, you can't see anything, you can't really hear anything, and like it's a deprivation of your senses. You know, your ears. I have earplugs in too to keep water out of my ears, and you know I was hearing weird stuff in that water too, bro. It sounded almost like a mixture between like a whale and like a dolphin, deep. Now, mind you, this is way in the middle of that lake, bro. This is like a couple thousand feet deep or something.
You guys have heard it first. There's Loch Ness Monster in Tahoe.
Tahoe Tessie, bro. That's
Tahoe-Tessie,
her name. It was weird, bro. I'm not even joking. And it was like, it wasn't all the time, but it was intermittent, like clicking, like sounded almost like a dolphin. But I could tell it was from the bottom, like way deep down there.
Wow.
So anyways, by morning time, dude, I'm a mess. And I'm starting to get cold. I can feel my core temperature going down. And I just gutted it out and got across that thing. But I did it in like 9 hours.
Oh, you didn't make the 8-hour mark?
Didn't make the 8-hour mark. But I felt accomplished, bro.
I would.
I felt good. You know what I mean?
You were still alive? That's
I was
good.
Still alive. I felt good with my effort, you know, and I was done swimming. I was like, you know what?
You hung up the towel, no pun intended.
I was like, enough is enough. I felt accomplished.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I did swim across that lake. You know what I mean? Whether or not it was the long way or not, like 13 miles, it was tough, bro. And it was a hard training workup, and it was a hard event. And I didn't think, I'm not built like a swimmer. You know what I mean? Like a lot of swimmers are I'm not built like a runner either. You know what I mean? A lot of them are skinny, low muscle mass. Mm-hmm. You know, cold water swimmers are hold body fat to get you
buoyant,
warm,
and buoyant,
But having big shoulders is a problem, because we start to invert like that, and so you're using a lot more shoulders than you would normally.
Yeah,
like a good swimmer, they're perfectly level and they can hold that for a long time. They're using their legs much more as a propellant, whereas people with more muscle mass and heavier upper body, we don't sit the same way in the water, and so we overcompensate with our shoulders, and that's what led to that injury.
Yeah, and there was only so much gas in your shoulders for that.
Yeah, and I couldn't do it. So I felt accomplished though, you know, and I felt good about what I had done, and you know where I was going, and just the personal development that it took to get to that point, you know, and.
Dude, you're among the elite for doing stuff like that. I mean, that's like the top.
Yeah, there's not a lot of people that have been able to do that, you know, especially mixing the running with the swimming, you know, with the hiking.
Yeah, especially just looking it up on YouTube and go, oh, I can do that.
I know, right?
Some Jake Paul type shit.
It comes to that self-belief, though.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And the journey of self-discovery, right? Like, who am I? What am I capable of? Am I tough enough to endure these things? Like, what can I do?
I'm sure that's a constant battle on that whole swim, right? You're doubting yourself. Yeah. Why did I do this? Why am I doing this? This is so stupid. Am I going to die doing something for my ego? But then you realize, like, when you do it, I can do it. I can do hard things.
Yeah. I mean, I had that realization when I was out there. I'm just like swimming in the middle of the night in this cold, dark water. You know, and I'm just like, what is wrong with me, bro? How did I get here? Yeah. Like, what happened?
Yeah, that's some pretty, that's badass, man.
I was like, this is retarded, bro. Yeah. But it was good,
but
man.
It makes for a great story because that's super admirable. Like,
yeah, just the whole experience and the personal development it takes to get there, you know? And you know all about that, you know? You just went through your first bodybuilding show, right?
Yeah.
How was that whole experience?
Well, it's something I wanted to do forever. It's something I've always wanted to do, but I just never, like, made the commitment to do it. I also knew that guiding me through that since I hadn't done it before. I needed someone to coach me through the process. I needed someone to coach, because the goal with bodybuilding is to be at your best peak condition on that one day,
yeah.
right? So not the 3 days before, not the day after. So
Right.
there's a science to
timing.
everything, right? And so I need someone who's done that before, help with the posing, help with the mental struggles along the way to be able to bounce that off someone who's been there, who's done it to the professional level, like those. And I knew that was going to be a cost.
Yeah.
So I got to a position where I'm like, you know what? I'm able to do this now. I'm able to invest in this. I have my everything set up at work where I can really put in this time.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the journey was long and it was hard. It was more than 8 hours, but it
Yeah.
doesn't seem as hard as that. That seems way harder to me. But yeah, it was
How long
hard.
was the training camp, like your workup towards that?
So generally, bodybuilding prep is usually 12 to 16 weeks.
Okay. Yeah.
But I took 10 months to do this.
Oh, wow.
Because, I didn't realize I had as much fat to lose as I did.
Right.
I didn't realize I was 215 pounds when I started.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I thought,
You
if I
didn't
lose.
really look fat, though. I mean, looking back, there's a huge difference, like in your side-by-side pictures, and we'll post these, but
Yeah.
you didn't look fat. Like you look like you lifted. You know what I mean? Like you ate hard and lifted hard. You know what I mean?
That's what I thought, too. And that's why in my mind I thought, I'm going to lose like 25 pounds and
Yeah.
I'll be
I'll be
good.
shredded.
I'll be
Yeah.
shredded. Then I lost 25 pounds and I went,
What
damn, I'm
happened?
not there yet. And then I lost another 20 pounds.
Gosh.
And so in the end, over the 10 months, I lost 47 pounds.
So let's walk through like how that prep went. So like, how did you drop your macros in order to lose that much weight?
Great question. So right in the beginning,
Yeah.
my food actually went up.
Okay.
The strategy behind that is really to see how my body's responding with the food.
Yeah.
So the first couple weeks, my weight actually creeped up a couple pounds, but that really helped build the foundation for a faster metabolic rate.
Yeah.
So that I was up here and I had more like leeway for
Yeah.
food reduction. So as we slowly reduced food over time, the carbs slowly disappeared.
Yeah.
And I think that's huge for having a coach. A lot of people will just make a huge change in their plan. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to eliminate carbs, or I'm going to eliminate this food or that food. It's not going to work well for you that way. If you just go from eating 3,000 calories to eating 2,000,
Right.
you're going to lose some weight. And then what? What are you going to do from there? Eat less than that? Like,
Yeah. Right.
so
One thing, so typically when people are doing these workups, like a training camp, that 16 weeks, does that include like a growth phase at all, like a bulking phase, or is
No.
that the taper?
no,
to
yeah,
lose
the
weight?
16 weeks out is
Okay.
once you
Off season is like your typical bulking time,
Yes.
where you're eating in a surplus, right,
Yes.
and like lifting to build that muscle.
Yes.
And then you get into this training camp to where okay, now we're gonna lean out and try to put our best physique forward.
Yes, by the time you're like 8 or 12 weeks out, you're like, whatever muscle you have, that's what you got.
Right.
And now the goal is to
because you're not even eating enough to gain muscle. Really,
Absolutely
at that
not.
point, right?
You're trying to eat enough to maintain as much as you can, and that's why reducing the food slowly is key.
Interesting.
So the
What
calories.
about your physical output though? Are you training to maintain, or are you
Yes.
training to grow still?
So that's the struggle with you're trying to maintain and hold on to your strength, and this is where the mental it really gets mental, because you've got to keep pushing heavy weight. You have to try to maintain the strength that you've had, even though you're not going to. You have to let that strength taper happen as slow as possible. So yeah, I mean. You'll see if you see if you saw some videos of me working out those last like 4 to 6 weeks. I mean, in between sets, my head's just resting on the bar, just like counting to 10 in my mind to like just go. Like you know when you do that 1, 2, 3, go.
Yeah.
Like that was every set. Like I just wanted to stop. I felt so hungry, just so depleted, so tired. But you just have to grind through it. And but that's what's fun too. It's working out's fun when you're getting stronger and you're getting pumps. It's not as fun when you have no pump, you're getting weaker.
Yeah.
But
kept you
everyone's
motivated through all that?
everyone telling me how shredded I was looking really helped. I mean, hearing that dude, you look
Progress,
shredded. It's like,
yeah.
dude, that just hearing that just made me like put a little bit more gas in my tank. It like made my sail with a little bit more wind, and it pushed me a
Yeah.
little bit further. I'm like, okay, it's working. It's
Yeah,
working.
it's working.
I'm too tired to even analyze what's going on right now, you know? So yeah, that's tough. And then when you get really lean and you're not eating enough food and you're not recovering and you're trying to train hard and you're not recovering and you're trying to train, you're in a position where you're likely to get injured. So you might need to change the exercises you're doing
Right.
to limit that potential for injury. Like we're not doing heavy deadlifts and heavy
Right.
barbell squats
Right.
at the end there. I mean, you can and people do, but I felt that the risk to benefit wasn't there.
And you were also training for a specific look, right?
Yes.
What was the category you
So
were in?
it was men's physique.
Men's physique. And
Yeah.
how is that judged? Because I'm a fan of bodybuilding, but that was the first show I ever went to, was your show. And it was weird to like see the open category and like how they flexed and how you know they looked and the different physiques that they had, and then you guys went up there, you're wearing different stuff, you're only doing like a couple of poses, it seemed like, and you're obviously trying to achieve a very specific look. What is that look, and how are you judged off of that?
So, well, that's the $1 million question, right? I mean, it's all subjective, right? It's all subjective to what the judges think. Now, there's some guidelines for each class, but at the end of the day, people are people, and people are judging you based on their own biases, and that's going to play a role. But generally, the men's physique category is wide shoulders, small waist, lean, beach body look. Like, hey, that guy's really ripped. He works out. But it's kind of an achievable look that more people can relate to.
Yeah.
The bodybuilding or the open bodybuilding is like
How much muscle can you
so
put on?
with men's physique, you don't compete in weight categories. They have you in height categories, but not weight categories. Because really, just because you're bigger, it doesn't mean you're going to win.
Right.
With open bodybuilding, it's has a lot to do with how conditioned and how shredded you are, but also how big you are.
Right.
So size
Symmetrical.
matters a lot, and so
Yeah.
there's more weight classes. There's weight classes with that,
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's some of those guys were massive.
and they pose in a way that's like aggressive,
Yeah.
like hard flexing and really popping the muscles, which is great. I love it. Men's physique is supposed to be more like effortless. Like you're
Yeah.
posing, but you're not putting in so much. You're not flexing
Full
with all.
contraction.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, you are, but you want to look like you're not. You want it to look natural. Like,
Yeah,
hey, I'm
yeah, yeah.
smiling. Hey, girls. You know,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah, yeah.
you know, it's more of that look than.
And it's just upper body, yeah?
Yeah,
'Cause
you're
you
not-
guys are
you're
wearing
not-
board shorts.
yeah, you're not
Are your
judged on
calves
your legs.
judged?
No,
No.
Now I have a hard time thinking that the judges don't notice, and
Yeah.
probably plays a role in their bias a little bit. I would think.
Yeah.
But no, your legs aren't judged, which was
Interesting.
actually to me backstage a little. I started to get a little disappointed that my legs weren't judged, because when we were getting tanned backstage the night before, I started looking around even at the guys doing bodybuilding, and I was like, my legs are good.
Yeah.
I wanted to show my legs off.
Right.
And so in the future, I think I might.
So when you were in the prep, did you know that this was the physique you were going for? Did you know that this was the competition? Like, how much time did you put into your legs? I mean, were you focused on this look the whole time, or did you have were you not sure, or what was that decision like?
Well, as far as training legs, I trained them like I trained everything else. I trained them hard. But towards the end, when my energy levels were low and really depleted, I definitely tapered back on, like I wasn't squatting real heavy. I was still training my legs hard, but only once a week. And towards the end, I wanted to keep that mass up because that's driving metabolic response, fat burning.
Yeah.
You know, I'm burning calories while I'm working my legs. So you don't want to stop doing that. So that really never changed. Just the intensity kind of dropped a little bit. Probably without my permission, just because I was so depleted.
Yeah.
But yeah, I picked the show date, and then it was like, okay, we're on and cracking. This is what I got to be ready for. And I just followed direction in the beginning. And this is a great tool of learning to get out of your own way. Like when you have your sponsor and they tell you do this or this, and you want to say, well, I don't know why that step's important, and that's kind of dumb. I don't know how that's going to apply to me. Just shut up and do it.
Right.
Because at the end, you're going to look back and realize that it all mattered.
Yeah.
And so in the beginning, I caught myself like justifying, rationalizing, or internally contradicting some of the things. My coach would say things, and I'm like, I don't know if I really have to do that. Maybe I can do it this way. But then he'd find out, because I'd always be honest at check-ins, and hound me for it. And I'm like, after a while, I realized, I need to just shut up, be a good student, and listen to what I'm told. Even if I don't feel like it makes sense in the moment, it all made sense in the end. And everything I did up to that point was I followed directions, and he got me there. And I was really happy with where I was.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was surprised, how shredded you got. I mean, I didn't think you were going to get that lean, So how was that? How do you feel like it ended up? Do you feel like you put your best physique forward? Do you feel like the timing was right? Do you think you could have done better? Like, how was your conclusion on that whole process?
Well, in Masters 35 to 40, I got second, so I could have done better. Yeah. So clearly I could have done better.
How did you think you stacked up against the guy that won?
Well, this is why, and this is why I'm excited to compete again, because I self-reflected and I realized the things I could have done better.
Okay.
Two of the things that stood out right away was always, you can always get better at posing. And I probably should have put more effort into posing and started practicing harder earlier in my prep. I kind of cramped.
Like posing was that big of a deal in that one, though.
Well, the way it is, though. It doesn't seem like it is.
Yeah.
But one way of shifting your hips, or the weight that you put on one leg versus another, really shows your obliques, or really will make your waist look smaller and your shoulders look wider. So there's little things that really do matter. Or one lat looks smaller than the other because there's a lot of things that go on that you don't really notice that I didn't, because I thought the same thing. And I wish I would have started and practiced more earlier. I think I could have done better there, which I think everyone can always do that. And I don't think I carved up enough backstage. I think I was worried about eating too much, but I should have eaten more carbs backstage, because afterwards, when I ate my meal afterwards, I was just popping, hose veins, just thin, dick skin, thin, just shredded, even more, and with mass. And I thought, man, I could have held way more glycogen than this. So next time, I know I can eat more rice backstage, eat more carbs. Probably could have pumped up not as early, because by the time I got up there, I felt like I was kind of losing my pump, which was partially because I didn't eat enough carbs. And I probably started pumping up. I didn't time it right, which I did well. Everything was great. I'm looking at those little things.
Yeah.
That those 5 or 10%.
But those make the difference.
That could have made the difference in me winning or not.
Interesting. So you're going to do another show?
Oh, for sure.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Do you have one lined up already?
No, not yet. Right now, I'm trying to enjoy having energy again.
Yeah.
And doing things with the kids. And, like it's Christmas time. We're doing some Christmas cookies. I'm keeping it. I'm still on my diet, but it's okay for me to bake some cookies with the kid on Saturday and have a couple right before.
Are you going to go through a bulking phase?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm starting that right now, but
Are you thinking you'd probably just do the same show next year and show back up with a better physique, or what?
So I'm debating that. I'm debating waiting an entire year to do that.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I want to wait that long.
Okay.
I kind of want to get a good 6-7 month off season. Yeah. So I guess I was hoping to have a 5 to 7 month off season, really put on some size without getting too over fat, so that next time I can diet down and lose 20 pounds before the show rather than 45 pounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a big swing.
I had no idea I had that much weight to lose.
Yeah.
I had no clue.
Yeah.
Someone told me whatever you think you have to lose, double it.
Really?
And they were accurate. I thought I had about 25 pounds to lose.
Yeah.
And I had 45 pounds to lose.
What's the typical for somebody that's doing, are you think you're going to gain 25 pounds between here and your prep?
Probably.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to gain it in 1 month.
Right.
So, it's been 6 weeks and I'm up only 6 pounds. So that's good.
Okay.
That's not typical of people who don't do this regularly. Most people have a hard time rebounding afterwards, but I'm still working with my coach who's helping me reverse diet out of this and hold me accountable to that.
Yeah, I think that's...
But professionals, people who are doing this for a career or doing this trying to become a pro, most of them hang out about 20 pounds above their stage weight in the off season.
Had you been tracking your macros prior to all this?
Loosely, yeah, I was, but I had more leeway. I wasn't weighing everything out. I'd weigh most things, but not everything. And then, Monday through Friday was good, but the weekends were still reasonable. But I wasn't really tracking everything on the weekend. I tracked my protein, but not as much. But that's why having consistency over time really unveils a lot of what you thought you were doing that you weren't doing.
Yeah, and there is a science to it, like really counting those macros and really paying attention to your diet and what you're putting in and the quality of what you're putting in, right?
Well, everything I have eaten for the last 10 months has been a single ingredient food, easy digestible food. It's like 5 different things, and that's all I've eaten for 10 months.
Yeah. And
still, that's pretty much all I'm still eating.
Yeah, and especially if you want to be that high performer, you know what I mean? If you want to be in that top 10%, if you want to be a champion, right? There's a separation between the champions and the people that aren't, and those champions break it down to every little detail, right? From their sleep cycles to their recovery. They're the ones that are,
Managing stress,
or soft tissue massage, like all the different aspects that you might not even think about. Like everything becomes a factor, right? And they obsess about it, and it's all consuming. But those are the people that separate themselves from everybody else, and
well, yeah, I mean, not everyone wants to get up at 4:30 or 5 in the morning, which I still do, and I did the whole time or during the last 16 weeks, get up at 5, get to the gym at 6, I'd get ready, get to the gym at 6, do an hour of cardio, get ready, start training clients, train them till like 2:00 in the afternoon, then do a 2 hour workout, an hour and a half of weights, and another 30 minutes of cardio. And then, so, I'm doing 3 hours of workout every day, which doesn't leave a whole lot of room for anything else. By the time I'm home, I'm starving, I'm hungry, I'm have no energy. So that's kind of why I want to take some time off too, because everyone else in my circle and my family and my friends, they kind of had to go through that with me. Never going out to eat, or if they did, I had to order lettuce and put chicken on it and buy them food just to like keep them happy. But some of the things that makes me realize that I could really excel in this and why I think I'm fit for this sport is I have no problem like with the diet. Yeah, I got hungry, and that part really sucks when you're really, really hungry, when you get really lean and your body's fighting you on like telling you get up and hunt food, like you're gonna die. That part's tough, but eating the same thing every day, prepping my food every single day, that wasn't hard for me. And everyone around me says, I don't know how you can eat the same thing every day for that. And I
sounds hard to me.
That wasn't a problem to me at all. I mean, I like chicken, I like rice, I like green beans, and I like oats, I like eggs. I have no problem eating that. Just towards the end, I just wish I could have eaten a little bit more of it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So moving forward, what do you got planned for next year?
Well, for next year, I want to get ready for the show, and hopefully we're going to be able to bring fitness and Jesus, to the public, and try to find hybridize those things and give them to everyone in one package.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. So 2025, we're looking to open Lord's Gym in Auburn, and this is something that's kind of been in development behind the scenes. And, for me and for us, like originally we just were planning on maybe opening a gym, like, as a passion project, and, so we can be our own bosses and, have a cultural gym that we want to work out in and be able to, control our own destiny in our own space like that. And then, we got hooked up with Doug and Janice Bird, who are the founders of Lord's Gym in Roseville. And Lord's Gym is a Christian nonprofit fellowship, and they were very fundamental in Roseville with bringing at-risk youth off the street and giving them a place and an environment to exercise and also leading those people to Christ, and we'll show a promotional video, a testimony from Joaquin Fabella where his whole life was changed through Lord's Gym. You know, he was a gangbanger, came off the streets and found Jesus at Lord's Gym and totally transformed his life. You know, and he's walked with Christ ever since and is a pastor, a youth pastor today, and has affected a ton of people, you know, and it was all because there's a place called the Lord's Gym that was available for him and helped him guide his life down the right path, you know. And so we're trying to do something similar to that in Auburn here to start. And, you know, coming from our recovery backgrounds, you know, we're going to be a little more oriented towards people that are struggling with addiction and homelessness, convicted felons, things like that. You know, I've been doing a homeless outreach for the past couple of years now. And so, you know, the name of our nonprofit is Lord's Gym Outreach, and, you know, it's a nonprofit Christian organization trying to lead people that are, you know, struggling with addiction and homelessness to Christ and to a better way of living, you know. And we've talked about all the positive benefits of exercise and what it's done for us and how it can change your life, you know. And so to have a place for people to come to experience not just exercise, but also a place to strengthen their mind, body, and spirit, you know?
And I think earlier we said that the gym has been a huge, like, we have a hole in us from that we try to fill with the drugs, alcohol, whatever addiction. Fitness can make you think you're filling that hole with it, but it's really not. It's a huge benefit, and it's a great outlet, and it helps you in all these other aspects of your life.
Yeah.
But if that's your solution to addiction, it may not last very long.
Yeah.
You've got to have, God has to be there. And if he's there and fitness is there, now you've got the strength physically, and you've got the strength spiritually, and you've got a God, an amazing superpower on your side to help fill that void. And then you can use fitness as icing on the cake.
Amen. Yeah. So we're going to offer some recovery classes there, you know, some meetings, 12-step faith-based meetings. It's going to be a community place. It's not just going to be somewhere, you know, like a 24-hour somewhere like that where you just go to get buff. Like, this is going to be a community organization, you know, to bring people together, to not just strengthen, but to heal and to learn and to grow, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually as well.
Absolutely.
You know, and this has been, like I said, at first it was just like, we just wanted to have a gym, you know, but then after talking to Doug Bird about it, you know, he planted that seed of putting Christ first in this thing, you know, and the more that I prayed and meditated about it, I just felt that that's the right direction, you know, and if we can use this platform to help people, you know, to affect change in our community, not just physically, right, but the other ways that we talked about, why wouldn't we? You know what I mean? And it's right in line with our personal values and the path that we've been on with recovery and being a part of the community. You know, we want to strengthen this community. We want to strengthen our families and affect a positive outcome on our environment, you know, and this is a great opportunity for that. Amen. And, you know, I'm really looking forward to it. And, you know, we're right at that point now where we're about to do some fundraising, and we're going to sell some shirts, and, you know, we've already done some fundraising, and then we're going to do some equipment, you know, merchandising, things like that, get all the equipment in place, and we're looking to open it, you know, around springtime of 2025. So we have big things for next year, you know, and you're thinking about starting a fitness podcast, right?
Yeah.
So what's that going to look like? What's your plan with that?
Well, that's still in the works, but hopefully my goal is to have a podcast that's really just based around health and fitness, but all aspects covering, I mean, from nutrition to mental health to yoga to business owning to managing difficult people in difficult situations as a trainer, as a business owner in the fitness space, online coaching versus in person. I just want to get the perspective of everyone who's in the business of overall wellness and have great conversations with them, and hopefully educate myself as well as the public on all aspects on how to improve your life or your situation physically and emotionally.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to that, and looking forward to get you back on here and we'll talk about it, man.
Heck yeah.
Thanks for coming out.
Victorious we became, but never forgot where we came from. Life or death, not a game. We came to change the lane. Recovery addicts, that's the name. Give yourself a break. Just